Well, President Trump riles up the crowd at CPAC, bringing back everything that we saw from him in 2016 during the election. Watch.
I saw a little shifty shift yesterday. The collusion delusion. Russia, please, if you can, get us Hillary Clinton's emails. And what we did in 2016, the election, we call it, with a capital E, it's never been done before, and we're going to do it, I think, again in 2020.
But will this same approach work for him in 2020? Here to debate is Democratic political analyst Robert Patillo and senior policy analyst at the Independent Women's Forum, Patrice Onwuka. Thank you both for joining us this morning. Always appreciate you joining us.
Thanks, Heather.
Patrice, I will start with you. I mean, it was something else. 2 hours and 2 minutes.
Oh, my goodness. President Trump, the statesman, stayed at the White House, but President Trump, the campaigner, was out in full force. And his base loves his unfiltered, unorthodox, persona. I think he did a great preview of what 2020 contenders can expect. And it's going to be very difficult for those on the left to try to challenge him on substance. At best, they'll challenge him on style, and most Americans are used to his style at this point.
So, Robert, what did you think about it?
Well, I think what we have to understand is that elections don't exist in silos. You can't rerun the same election from 2016. The electorate is different. And plus, Democrats now have had another 4 years to prepare for what he was doing in 2016. He can't just simply depend on free media for every time he does something, every time he tweets something. So we're going to have a much more interesting race this time with Democrats more prepared for the Trump typhoon.
And with that point being made by Robert, Patrice, some of the things that he can talk about are some of the many successes that he's had so far. Record low unemployment being one of them.
Absolutely. Unemployment for blacks and Hispanics, people of color, record low, women as well. But let's look at some of the other things that his base supported him for in 2016. Getting two Supreme Court judges on the bench, lower level judges as well. Looking at foreign policy, I think making America a strong force in the international stage, I think is something that's been important as well. And, just looking at the economy, it is booming. And unless something turns around in this economy, it is again going to be difficult for Democrats to fight back. And by the way, I disagree with my colleague here. I mean, whenever the president tweets, it does make national news because a lot of news networks make money off of the president. So whatever he says is still going to make news, and it's going to be hard for those contenders to try to break through.
Robert, I'll ask you this question in terms of Democrats and those who are thinking about or have already announced that they are running against President Trump in 2020. It seems to be a lot of them talk about, this Green New Deal. Socialism seems to take center stage, and they get a lot of free coverage when they talk about things like that. But conservatives at CPAC think that it's not, in fact, Bernie Sanders, who, of course, supports, socialist views, but instead Joe Biden, who is President Trump's biggest threat in 2020. And as you respond to that, we can bring up this poll that actually shows that 40% think that Joe Biden is a bigger threat, but he's more moderate versus the far left candidates that we seem to hear from.
Well, let's understand one thing. Bernie Sanders will not be the Democratic nominee for president. He is not a Democrat. If Bernie Sanders is the Democratic nominee, I will no longer be a Democrat. I'll come back on this show with a MAGA hat on. So let's just make that clear.
Wow.
Yes, absolutely. Bernie Sanders will not be the Democratic nominee. And the reason that Joe Biden is polling so well, he has almost 100% name recognition. He's universally adored by Democrats. He reminds people of the Obama years. He has that moderate policy where he is from a period of time where people worked across party lines, where he can actually get things done in Washington. Let's look at Bernie's record in the Senate. What did he actually pass? And what will he do differently as president to get things passed into law that he couldn't do as a United States Senator? The whole thing is, the 2016 was about a hatred for Hillary Clinton in the base, and that's why Bernie looked so good. Bernie versus a real Democratic field will not fare so well.
So perhaps not run against, like a hatred of President Trump. Maybe that wouldn't be a good track for Democrats. But we do know that Bernie Sanders raised $6 million in just the first couple of hours after he declared. Patrice, you get the final word.
Yeah, I mean, I think don't count out Bernie Sanders yet. I think there's still a lot of angst on the left for the fact based on how he was treated. And while Biden does do very well with Democrats and some independents, he would have to survive a pretty harsh Democratic primary season. I mean, he's going to be taking some hits, and a lot of the things that he said, Uncle Joe has said in the past, is going to come back to bite him. So I'm not so optimistic that he's going to be a done deal at this point.
And the Democratic Party may be changing. We had this public opinion strategy survey that we've talked about where 77% of Democrats believe that the country would be better off in terms of socialism. So, we'll see. Thank you both for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Heather.
Have a good day.